Hello, welcome to Makers of All, Master of None, and today we have a Mazda MX-5 RF Tamiya 124 scale model. I do have this exact car in life, and that is quite fun.
I apologize if some of the voiceover sounds are very nasal. My nose is entirely blocked and breathe out of my mouth.
What I'm going to do compared to last time is I'm going to group the parts according to their color, prime them all, and then bulk paint them all in one go. I will try and do some modifications to this to satisfy my need of modding my car, but without having to spend tens of thousands to do that. But I might go for a different color scheme than what I have as well. This is also approved by the Mazda Corporation. Approval number 10,003. I don't quite know how I'm going to sort this out yet. Do have some food containers, so we're going to start off with using this.
So the sorting was quite a vague process. Essentially just looking through the parts and seeing what color it needs. I also gave some, not a lot, of thought into if masking certain parts would be easier, whether to do one color or another first. For example,
one and then TS30. Mask. This is the easiest to mask off. Yeah, silver first, then black, then aluminium. Cool. Gosh, hopefully this is the last time I use this. I wanted to do an upgrade at some point. It's a bit sticky. Oh, I need to prep them first before I can sand them. Damn it.
So just standard part prep, nipping, and then sanding. Doing all of them at once I think actually makes it go a bit faster, as you don't need to keep switching tools and interrupting the workflow. But it can feel like a bit of a chore with more parts.
Two weeks later.
And then after that, it's priming time.
Two weeks later.
So I was going to continue at some point, but I have noticed that the suspension bits have been a little bit broken. You can see that's one part of the suspension and that's the other. There's also another one here that is a bit stuck. The metal jaws have just snapped off the suspension. It's been a couple days, so I don't particularly blame it, but I've also been busy with other things as well, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I will take all the parts off until I next work on it, and maybe think about a way to fix it at some point.
And the fix really was just using super glue, which surprisingly worked given that they're both rods, and in my experience that would snap again under any load. So it worked not too bad. For future reference, on smaller parts I'm going to attach blue tape around the parts and then clamp the blue tape instead. And once all of that is done, we start painting. Starting with the main color with the airbrush, and then either hand painting or masking and then airbrushing the second and third color. You might notice that I have swapped airbrushes halfway through, but I have another video talking about my new to me airbrush. Flat parts, or parts with edges separating the color, the masking process was fairly straightforward. Like here, I just applied a bit of tape, press down to find the features, and then trace it out with a knife. Parts with curves are the ones I struggle the most with. Trying to get a clean, sharp edge just doesn't seem to be possible. Even using many segments of masking tape doesn't really help. I'm gonna have to explore using some alternative methods next time. I did find more parts which were broken during the process, but that was fixed as well using superglue. One of the things I didn't do great here was leaving clamp marks on the part instead of, say, blue tacking on the back. So I had to do a couple of coats to make sure it is evenly coated. One of the parts I struggled the most with painting is the chair, due to previously mentioned masking issues. And you'll see that coming back around later.
Some of these need a little bit more detail, so those will be hand painted in and a little bit touch-ups. Things like here. So some touch-ups is going to be needed. Like here, which I accidentally scraped.
Even though I probably should have just left it at this point. A quick PSA, don't use contact cleaner to clean off dust on your painted parts, especially if they're not dried. Not sure what I was thinking to make me do this, but this is the reason why I had to repaint the chair.
Yeah! That's a bad idea.
It is my sorry attempt at hand painting the chair. And to be honest, I'm not sure what happened. I think I went a bit overzealous with the red accents and didn't thin the paint enough, and I didn't use a small enough brush. And to be honest, I just wanted this project to be done now, as it's been many months since I started. As I said earlier, one of the new things I'm exploring in this build is creating mods. So after quick googling for inspo, I have a vague idea of what I want. But before we do any modding, I assemble the body shell pieces first. This gave me a more visual representation of what I'm aiming for, but it probably also hindered me somewhat when it comes to painting. I decided I wanted some hood grills and a hood scoop. The hood grill probably wasn't the best idea, as I didn't really read the instruction manual properly, and I didn't realize that this model doesn't have a fully built engine, so it's just going to be staring down the abyss. But first, I sketched out the location and shape of where I wanted them. I also sketched out a pair of front bumper canards and where I want the rear wing to be. To help with my modding are PLA plates. I've never used them before, so this is going to be an experiment. I got a pack of 5 with varying thickness, which would hopefully help. For the hood scoop, I was just going for a simple style, so I cut out 2 rectangles, cut the lower one so there is some depth and shadow, and after lots of trimming to length, I finally sanded the edges and corner for a smoother shape. With the hood scoop now in place, I redrew the hood grill so that they are more evenly distributed. Making the front bumper canards were relatively simple. I just traced out the shape of the bumper to ensure a good fit, and then trimmed it to the shape I want.
Ho 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 ho! That's not bad.
What's more difficult was trying to keep hold of those before I start the final assembly. The mod that took me the most amount of time was trying to thicken the wheel arch. Don't ask me why I decided to do a wheel arch, it was just in my head that I wanted to do it. It's not the easiest thing to do as the body of the car slants, so I had to do a couple of steps to try and achieve the look I want, and that's not including all of the mistakes I made. This is partly the reason why this project took so long. First, I traced out the shape of the wheel arch onto the PLA plate and then glued them onto the body. I also tried first sticking a rectangular plate on and then trimming it, but that didn't come out very good either. This was quite tricky as I didn't have any tiny clamps, so some of them didn't really adhere properly.
Seems to have dried really nicely. There's a little bit of lifting, so I'm just gonna correct that. Or as much as I can anyway. I need to be careful about this. Hope it doesn't break. Or slip out for that matter. So I was thinking of doing a winglet, but I'm not sure whether it's how I'm gonna style that properly. Not convinced. Not convinced.
One of the key elements of doing the mod is the rear wing. And even though I have a few ideas on how to achieve this look, this is my first time trying out PLA plate. So I'm going to have to do some experimentation first.
Right, I'm gonna use a little test piece. Cool, it went floppy really quickly. Just slightly enough to warm it up. And there it goes, it bends. How hot. So like that.
After failing to get my Zippo lighter to give a constant flame, I turned to my candle lighter to try and heat form the plate, with some mixed results.
That's definitely more interesting now. No, don't burn. Oh no! That's what happens when you overstress it, I guess.
So the problem with heating and then folding the PLA plate, other than the main problem which is consistency, is that you get a bundle of extra material gathered up in a corner, which bulges and is hard to do a clean fold. So my solution to that was to use a chisel soldering iron, which would create a groove so that the excess material can be easily cleaned off. I wasn't quite sure which wing and plate design to go for, so I sketched out a couple of options and decided on one. With the help of the soldering iron and some nippers, I managed to cut out the shape of the winglet, as well as the slots for adhering them and the legs for the wing. Back to the wheel arches, and for a more continuous and seamless transition from the body, I'm mixing up some milliput so I can sand and sculpt it. The problem is that my milliput is slightly old, so the resulting clay was a little bit bumpy. But this is what it looks like after the first part of sculpting. I attempted to clean up the messy sculpting with a Dremel. However, with the size of the sanding tool that I have on hand, I could only get a rough shape of what I wanted, and couldn't get into the nooks and crannies. I also tried to do some divots using kind of like a jeweler bit, but the chunky milliput means that more material fell out than I wanted, so I ditched the idea. As you can see here, while the low grit sanding tool managed to remove a lot of material, it didn't achieve a smooth finish, so I'm gonna have to back that with some sandpaper. As this has been a while since I started and I want to see some visual progress, as well as needing to clean up the desk a little bit for some other uses, I started the assembly process. With the body now prepped as much as I was willing to prep it, I gave it its final color. And there goes mistake number 1. Always make sure you have enough paint. And mistake number 2, make sure that the paint is dry before you flip it over and place it on anything, because this is what happens.
2 weeks later.
I actually got a different shade of blue. This is TS51, which is racing blue. It's a little bit lighter than the deep metallic blue, but it's not as light as the light metallic blue which I had before. Because I found with the deep metallic blue, it is quite deep and deeper than I expected. The reason probably is because I was running towards the end of the spray paint. We do also have to get this part out as well, so that's what we're going to try and do. Oh, that came off relatively easily. That's fine. You can also see that. You can also see, hopefully, once it focuses. Please focus. Please focus. That there are some imperfections in the paint. So I'm hoping some sanding will help get rid of that while we use something to dissolve the paint.
So I was experimenting on the smaller piece, how much paint I have to sand off before applying the racing blue paint. And as you can see, the deep metallic blue still shows through the layer of racing blue. So I'm going to have to do quite a thorough cleaning of that and the body, and that's going to be a pain, and it took forever. I tried a couple of different methods, paint thinner, contact cleaner, airbrush cleaner, sanding, and including this new display sanding tool. Again, another video which I'll show you my thoughts on that. What I found worked the best was white spirits, especially in combination with something rough like a crunched ball of tin foil or a wire scrub. And to clean up the mess I made, as well as all of the grooves I'm making again with this cleaning process, I again used some filler primer to fill in the gaps. And essentially I just repeated the sanding priming process a couple of times. In between the primer coats I also used a sharp object, i.e. a needle, to scribe lines so that it doesn't get lost under, you know, the roughly 10 coats of primer. And after that is just putting the rest of the bits together and applying the decals. And here is the final result. Honestly, this is not my best modding work. I know this is the first time I'm doing modding, but some of the basics I haven't really gotten right yet. Even like applying paint to the body, which is still a little bit uneven. It's the first time painting the window, so I don't know not to use primer and just go with straight paint. The chair is definitely a thing that I need to deal with, and it's gonna sit there on my shelf just looking ugly forever. But we make mistakes, we learn from them, and I'll see you on the next time of Makers of All, Master of None. Bye!